Welcome back, the masterpiece of the Mississippi, home of many treasured buildings as we've just seen. Now sit back and relax as we take a look at two more historic Dubuque buildings, and each has had a significant place in Dubuque's history. That's all coming up on If These Walls Could Talk. The grandest of them all. That's how people describe the Grand Opera House located right here in downtown Dubuque. It has served as a cultural center of Dubuque since 1890, and now, after some reconstruction, it's entering a new golden age. The Grand Opera House proudly sits at the corner of West 8th and Iowa Streets. One of 16 live theaters in Dubuque prior to the 1900s, the Grand Opera House could stage the largest shows in the city.
Well, Dubuque was booming in the late 1880s. 1889 in particular, a bunch of community leaders at the time decided we needed a grand opera house. There were a lot of theaters in town, there always had been since the very earliest days. But they decided we needed a grand opera house, and that's exactly what they delivered.
When first built, the theater was the largest in town, with seating up to 1,100 eager patrons. The massive stage stretched 42 feet from back to front.
A gorgeous construction at the time, and of course it stood for 123 years, so it's lasted as well.
It was built in the Richardsonian Romanesque architectural style. The outside facade featured St. Louis brick facing with Bayfield red sandstone trim. At a cost of $65,000, construction was completed within a year. Famous architect Willoughby Edbrook, known for his construction to the old U.S. Post Office and Ellis Island buildings, oversaw the project.
It was a thriving community of culture as it is today. It was truly a golden age for live entertainment.
The doors opened on August 14, 1890, with a performance of the opera Carmen, staged by the Hess Opera Company, the most prestigious production company in the country at the time.
And 65 people on stage and a full orchestra in the pit. Patrons in Dubuque at that time, from newspaper accounts, paid $5, which would be the equivalent today of $125 apiece. Now, they didn't fill the house that opening night. They put 800 people in here, though, which was a pretty amazing amount of people.
For the next several years, the Dubuque community would enjoy live theatrical productions performed by celebrities such as
John Philip Sousa's orchestra played here sometimes 3 times a year. The Johann Strauss Orchestra, the Waltz King from Vienna was here. Paderewski, for example, Will Rogers. Ed Wynn, tremendously funny comedian. Al Jolson, Sarah Bernhardt, all of the greats of that era played here in Dubuque.
But not all shows were winners. One particular performance stands out. The Cherry Sisters, billed as the worst act in showbiz.
The newspaper account says that the theater was packed on the night they were here with mostly male patrons, and the Cherry Sisters would perform behind what amounted to chicken wire because the audience would throw things at them. And on this particular night, somebody in the second balcony had somehow smuggled in a big wash tub. During one of the numbers, this person threw the wash tub down on the stage, and one of the Cherry Sisters ran backstage, grabbed a shotgun, came out and pointed at the audience. With that, the curtain fell and they were escorted out. It's a crazy moment in grand history, to say the least.
After 1910, many theaters began to make the transformation to a new medium, cinema, and the Grand followed suit. In 1915, they installed a fly-in screen to show more movies and less live theater. 13 years later, the live theater was all but gone.
The death knell for live theater was certainly the talkies. When sound came to the film, people flocked to the theaters to see sound. And in 1928, the owners decided, well, let's be realistic and let's show movies.
The Grand operated as a first-run movie house for many years. By the 1980s, it was showing third-run movies, and the once majestic theater had lost much of its magic.
I remember seeing Dracula with Frank Langella here for $1. And it was kind of interesting to see Dracula for $1 with Frank Langella and real bats flying across the stage because it was falling apart inside. There were bats, there were pigeons. It was not a pleasant place to be anymore.
From live theater to third-run movies, the Grand Opera House had lost what made it grand. It was time for it to go back to its roots and bring back live theater.
It wasn't well kept. It was really run down. But we took a step forward with that facility to take it back historically to live theater, but there's nothing like live theater where you can almost touch the person.
When the Grand Opera House was falling apart, citizens involved with the Barn Community Theater looked at the rundown building, saw what it could be, and took a chance.
I think we wanted a place to do theater, and what better way than to walk the boards that George M. Cohan walked, or to act on a stage where Sarah Bernhardt played. There's something about that feeling as an actor to repeat history and to keep history going. And that building was really getting run down. And by rejuvenating it, you've rejuvenated that whole theater and the art forms that are in that theater.
So, 94 years after opening night, the Grand Opera House began the process to bring live theater back to downtown Dubuque. But there was a lot of fixing up to do first.
First, when we bought it, it was just filthy. We had to clean everything. From carpets to the seats had like black dust all over them. The fire curtain no longer met code, so we had to take care of that. We had to clean the restrooms. Upstairs, all of the pipes, those had to be taken out. The attic, we cleaned out the attics, and the downstairs area we had to fix up so we could have cast it, to have dressing rooms. The actual stage area, we had to take care of the floor. Bats were flying in and out, so we had to plug up where there was open. You could see light coming through various spaces.
The musical revue, Tintypes, was chosen to be the first performance and was actually staged before the renovations were finished.
We had to get people in to see that we weren't crazy. See, when we bought that, everyone thought we were crazy. I guess today they wouldn't think we were so crazy in buying that facility.
I was here sitting in the audience that night when it opened. I was delighted to be a part of that first nighter, so to speak, again.
And as the saying goes, with live theater, the show must go on.
One night, all the power went out when we were putting on that show, and we had to use flashlights, and we ran lights to the restrooms and plugged them in, and so it's kind of interesting. And the show is about George M. Cohan, and George M. Cohan played in that theater. And that particular night, all the electricity and lights went out, except we could still do the play. And so we always said that maybe George M. Cohan showed up on that particular night, if you believe.
They reopened, people came, and they decided to take the next step. With a successful track record under its belt, the board of directors decided it was time to bring the Grand Opera House back to all of its old glory. In order to accomplish this, volunteers helped install a new floor for the stage and aisles, new seats, repainted the interior, and changed the outside marquee.
We believe that we have entered a new golden age here. We really do. With top quality people trying out for shows. And I succeed in hiring the best directors I can find. People of outstanding integrity and tremendous talent. And they are dedicated to doing a first-class job. That's so important to deliver what you promise. And I think we always deliver what we promise.
Today, performances range from ballet to middle school musicals, from Phantom of the Opera to classic country shows. The Grand Opera House stands ready to serve as the heart of culture in Dubuque.
We've evolved into a building, a cultural icon of real significance with a sincere dedication to preserving what we have and keeping it moving into the future. We want it to be here for another 100 years. Wouldn't that be nice?
So it wasn't my success, it wasn't the board's success, it was everyone's success, and they really felt ownership of that. And the slogan, "We're all having a grand time," when you were really dirty and cleaning things and things weren't working very well, you could still say, "I guess we're having a grand time."
That's what the arts means. It means exciting people, tripping their imaginations, letting the world know that Dubuque is a pretty darn special place to be. And indeed it is.
It's had many names: Mario's House, the Roshek Mansion, and now Clarke Manor. Some of Dubuque's most notable families have stayed here. In fact, just 5, and you know their names. They've helped shape Dubuque's history. You can stay here too. Now it sits as a bed and breakfast. You can walk the halls of history, if only for just one night. Guests gather around the dining room table and enjoy the taste of eggs and biscuits for breakfast and the comfort of this long-standing home. Clarke Manor sits high atop the bluffs of Dubuque, overlooking all 3 states. And this lofty site was originally chosen not just for the view, but for Ebenezer Clarke's health as well.
He said that he had consumption, so he thought he could breathe better up on the bluff here, and there weren't very many houses up here at the time.
So who was Ebenezer Clarke? The well-known Dubuquer was a prominent dentist in town, practicing for over 50 years.
So they had a good reputation in town. They were very giving, loving people. Everyone came here for events and stuff, and they were always very giving people.
With 7 children and a full-time nanny, maid, gardener, and stable boys, Clarke Manor was hustling and bustling with activity. To find some peace and quiet, Ebenezer started the gorgeous gardens.
Mr. Clarke was an avid gardener. He's the one that started all the beautiful gardens on the property. That was what he was also known for, was his gardens.
In Clarke's day, the manor stood with a brick Italianate style. After his passing in 1907, the manor was sold to a family with an even more notable profile, the Rosheks.
And that's what most people know it by, was the Roshek Mansion. They were here 80 years, 3 generations.
The Rosheks, of course, are known for constructing the Roshek department store, the largest department store in the state at the time, and built within sight of their library windows.
Before the trees got big, you know, the Rosheks could see all the way downtown to their building. They could see all the way downtown. They could see all the way to the river.
After moving in, the Rosheks did a number of modernizing renovations to suit their tastes and switched the architecture to more of a mission style. They added on to the kitchen, library, and built an additional wing which includes another family room and an upstairs bedroom. Outside, a limestone wall was built from material salvaged from the Greystone mansion of the famous Cooper Wagon Works family. Second-generation residents Betty and Tom Roshek were noted for tilling away at the gardens to make sure the flowers were in bloom.
Even the postman, when he would deliver the mail, he would finish the neighborhood and then he would come back and help them in the gardens. I mean, that's just, the gardens were beautiful and everybody wanted to enjoy them and share them, so.
The Rosheks lived in Dubuque for over 80 years, and their contributions, especially the Roshek building, has made quite an impact on the city.
They had just got the building done and they were dedicating the building. That's why the family came, actually. And I remember standing outside with those 2 kids, and now they're in their 20s. One's a doctor, and he's looking up at that building, and he's looked up and he could see the Roshek brothers on both sides. And he said he never expected to have that feeling of, my gosh, my family really was something in this town at one time.
The Rosheks moved on, and eventually Clarke Manor became home to one of Dubuque's most famous restaurateurs, Mario and Angelina Bertinelli, owners of Mario's Italian Restaurant and Lounge, a Dubuque favorite.
There's always been a home with family gatherings and cooking, and so many stories from neighbors and friends that I've heard about, you know, the big family get-togethers.
The Bertinellis made Clarke Manor their home for 27 years and raised their 2 daughters there. They filled the house with homemade Italian cooking, laughter, and Mario's personally grown wine.
Mrs. Bertinelli, she was the one that planted all the hostas. This place is completely surrounded by hostas. There's thousands of them here, and she planted every single one. And Mario, he brought a grapevine from Italy, and for years he made, grew the grapes, made his own wine, and enjoyed it thoroughly.
And now you can enjoy the splendor of this home. Owners Taylor and Barbara Walter have opened the manor to everyone as a bed and breakfast. Guests are immersed in elegance and grace and have a chance to admire the personal touches of the past, from Mario Bertinelli's chess set to Betty Roshek's detailed gold ceiling plate chandelier designs.
It was 150 years old, and it had lots of prominent families living here, but even that, it was just a home. It was a family home always. And now that it's a B&B, it can be enjoyed by more people. They can actually see it and experience it and hear the stories.
In the luxurious Italian suite, guests can stay in the former master bedroom of the Rosheks and Clarkes. While in the back hallway, The Paris room used to be the nursery, while the hunt room was where the maid's quarters was. In a tucked-away closet, a winding staircase leads guests up to the cupola and the rooftop deck, an addition by the Walters to bring back the old-time splendor of the 1800s.
I mean, the guests absolutely love to go up there and see the view of the whole city and all three states. You can see the river. I mean, up there with the stars at night, it's great. You can see the fireworks from up there. It's just a great place. It's like a whole different world when you go up there.
For a century and a half, Clarke Manor has been majestically perched over downtown Dubuque, a fine example of one of Dubuque's grandest homes, filled with a fabulous history. So there you have it, 2 more gorgeous historic buildings in Dubuque. There really is magnificent history around every corner. For If These Walls Could Talk, I'm John Sutter.